Hello, this is David Heine, and today we're in a very unusual museum, the Tattoo Museum, with Henk Schriefmacher. And Henk is not only well tattooed, but he's an author of several books about tattoo. He's the founder and I think owner and manager of this museum. So, Henk, maybe you could tell me first a little about the history of your involvement with tattoos.
With tattooing, I was a journalist, I was a photographer, I worked for a couple of Dutch magazines, and in the very early 70s I did a few reportages on tattoo conventions, and I sort of got intrigued with the tattooed figure in a picture, because like there was this extra bit of communication on every photo. I mean, normally it's the hairdo, it's maybe the glasses or maybe the jewelry which communicate, but this communicated on top of it. So like I got really interested with it and started to collect stuff and picked up my first tattoo, and this collection just got slowly out of hand, and like I ended up with a house full of like boxes. And I then it gets to the point where it doesn't grow anymore. Like all your books there, if you just keep all that knowledge you have there for yourself, that doesn't grow anymore. So like, and as soon as you like open up, people bring stuff in, not only artifacts but also knowledge, little know about things. So like, I very quickly sort of decided I had to do something with it, and we started in the late 80s by having a little permanent exhibition in the tattoo shop, and like since 96, they just told me, I forget dates, since 96 we have this place, we are open to the public, and up till now it's been a success. I mean, like we are the only tattoo museum in the world at this moment. There used to be one in San Francisco. It got like, the earthquake took care of the building, Lyle had to close the place, Lyle Turtle. And now we're here, and we have 23,000, 22,000 visitors a year, which is 3,000 or 4,000 more than the heavily subsidized archaeology museum, which is also a great museum. But like, we're doing that, we're all right. We'll stay there. If this is, we have a right to be here with that amount of people.
Well, tattooing is one of the oldest art forms in the world, I think, isn't it? And you seem to have tattoos from all over the world, or tattoo memorabilia and objects from all over the world. Yeah. What exactly is the origin of tattooing? Do we know?
It is the origin of mankind. I mean, tattooing is as old as man. From day one, they did stuff to themselves, like cutting their hair just to express himself, like from being an animal. Like an animal does not, he takes care of his fur, but like in terms of a human being, he will cut his hair or like dye his hair or paint himself up. So like the tattooing or the scarification it's all very close. It happened all very quick, and with the migration of man into the world, tattooing traveled along, and like in certain areas flourished and in other areas disappeared again and then came up again. If Darwin said there is no people in the world who do not know the phenomenon of tattooing. So there is always a bit of tattooing somewhere. Sometimes big, sometimes small, sometimes medical, sometimes religious, sometimes nationalistic, sometimes cosmetic. There's people who make amulets in their skin to protect them, to like give them stuff, to make sure they get to the right place in heaven, or to give birth to just men instead of women.
So, the tattooing itself is often done in ritualistic settings in many of the tribal areas. Today in the world, tattooing has become an incredible phenomenon. What would you attribute that to?
I think that has an awful lot to do with the way we live nowadays. I mean, like when you used to come home like all dirty from working in the mines, and just jump in the bed next to the old lady, just all black. It's a different world. It's a different industrial world. We do not are there out there in the dark, leave in the dark, arrive back in the dark at home, you know, like all worked out like in the factory. People working behind computers, and the only thing they get is a fucked up little wrist from the mouse there, you know. That's one of the new instead of your broken back from work. So like, men use makeup, I mean, men use perfume, and I mean, like, that was an unthinkable thing 50 years ago. So like, there's a big interest in whatever you can do with your body, in terms of piercing, in terms of tattooing. I mean, like, just think about 25 years ago, like, if you would go out and buy a pair of shorts, there were 2 or 3 different shorts you had to choose from. You go to, there's people who sell underpants, just one store, 250 different underpants with all kinds of crazy variations. So like, it is an okay thing to do something with your body. An accepted thing. Yeah.
At one point, excuse me. At one point, it seemed to be primarily at least in the Western culture, among the sailors and kind of the bad guys. Now it seems to be even a middle class phenomena.
The middle class is always careful. You know, like the status quo is always a little bit careful, because they always think, oh, you know, they're looking at me, or like, you know, or they want the same thing like the next door neighbor. But like, it always had that adventurous aspect. I always call it an adventurous aspect, because the sailor's tradition sort of came from the pilgrimage, came from the pilgrim tattoos in the early days of Christianity. It was, you would go to Jerusalem, or you would go to Santiago de Compostela, and you would come back with a pilgrim tattoo. And this was always a proof of a far travel and an adventurous travel, which you survived. And you did not bring a whole backpack full of all kinds of souvenirs to give to the family, because you wouldn't carry that stuff, because you had to go walking. So like, that would be the proof. That is also what gives the sailors the tradition. And of course, the sailor tradition got really big after Captain Cook sort of like found tattooing in the Pacific, and gave it the nowadays name. You know, because the nowadays name, tattoo is a drum beat, and the Polynesian word was tatau, and Cook named it after. He just took the closest English word and used that for and just saddled us up with the word tattoo, which is from the Dutch word taptoe, which means a medieval drum beating who would close the bars, who would close the beer pump, which is called the tap. So like, it's all a Dutch matter.
So what was your first tattoo?
I got real serious on my first tattoo. You know, like, oh, you know, this, I gotta be with me for life, and I really gotta think what really fits my personality and that kind of shit. So like, I came up with, if you think long enough, you will always come up with basically people come up with the same thing. Your star sign, astrology. So I'm Aries, and I do not believe in astrology, but I have my Aries here on top of my arm, being my first tattoo, by a guy called Tattoo Peter, who had one leg, and this was in the 70s, and he was one of my collector friends. We would both collect stuff on tattooing. I would find a magazine with something on tattooing, I would always buy 2. One for him, one for me. He would do the same thing.
Now, one of your books is about your trip to Borneo. Did you go there primarily to study the tattooing phenomena there?
Yeah. This is a trip. I collect books on tattooing, and they're not easy to get. Like, especially the older books are very hard and very expensive. And one of the more expensive and very rare books is by a guy called Nieuwenhuis, and he traveled in Borneo in 1896. And he crossed Borneo in 3 months. He went to what they call the Apokayan, which is the heart of Borneo, central Borneo. And when I finally found the book, and I bought it for the museum, there was a map in the back of exactly his travel. So like, as soon as I saw the map, I knew I had to do the same thing. You know, like, we basically went to Borneo with a bunch of money and changed it in all these rupiahs, you know, and because of the current, you know, you get millions of these things. So like, it all boiled down in 2 big plastic shopping bags full of rupiahs, one in each hand. We had to go through the jungle to pay everybody a little bit here, a little bit there. And I was there with Anthony Kiedis, the Red Hot Chili Pepper guy, and we barely survived the whole thing. It had, it was nothing we thought it would be. We walked away. I just came straight out of the cafe here in Amsterdam, and stepped into the jungle, and we ran into dengue fever. I had 130 leech bites. I had scabies. I had a bladder infection. So like, and one day before we finally hit the other side, Kiedis got so sick that we called in a helicopter and got him into the hospital.
Did you find some very interesting tattoos?
We found some stuff, although it is officially dead in the Indonesian part, because the Indonesian government does not want people to tattoo. The Indonesian government wants everybody to have a nice grey suit. This was a Suharto government, which is still sort of like in charge. And I mean, like, the only thing they want out of that jungle is the wood and the oil and the gold or whatever they can find in there. And so, like, very quickly, the Aborigine people are out there get into big problems. And right now, they're headhunting again. I mean, like, I was really surprised to see that shit going on the BBC. They're all chasing each other with big mandaus. They're back again to where they were. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's good.
Now, there are certain cultures around the world that still feature tattoos as one of their dominant things. New Zealand seems to have a culture like that. What's the deal there?
Well, there is basically all these countries had tattoo, and New Zealand had the most beautiful tattoo of all, the moko, the facial tattoo. And but right now we're dealing with a revival. Like, a lot of these people out in the Pacific all of a sudden realized that they have an own identity, and they're looking for that identity again. Maori is an official study at the university, and people are getting their tattoos again. They're learning their own language again, and they get pride in who they are, and like, they're putting on their tattoos again. Everywhere in the Pacific, this is going on at this moment. Tahiti, there's people like getting tattooed again. They, like, basically by getting tattooed in Tahiti, you tell them, the French, I'm Tahitian. Fuck you. With your nuclear experimenting in our world, just get the fuck out of here. This is ours. And these people go every Wednesday to the airport and just blow on shells, and they're all dressed up traditionally. Their hair is done traditionally. It became again what it was: a form of communication, a statement of the pride of the tribe of who you are.
And here in the West,
we get a little bit of everything. I mean, like. Our role is in this moment, for me, I think my role in this moment is like to help them get this stuff back, because we have all that information basically here in museums. Because like, it very quickly died when the missionaries came there. They just took care of everything. So whatever that is in sketchings, engravings, and is in British Museum, is in ethnographic museums. So like, the hand I did is. The last time they did a hand like this in Samoa is 10 years ago. This is against arthritis. So, like, me being afraid that might go, I just had one of those hands done. I'll leave the hand in the museum one of these days. When I kick the official bucket here, I'm going to leave some of this stuff here. That's actually the plan. This is part of the museum collection.
I actually, years and years ago, was in Florida in the U.S., and the Ripleys, believe it or not, had a tattoo museum. I mean, old tattoos that they had preserved between glass. Yeah. Fascinating. And so you're going to have something like that?
I have some stuff like that. We got an 1850 lower arm, the skin of a lower arm of a sailor. We even got a mummified arm, which is 2,500 years old, which is a Nazca. It's very hard to get that kind of stuff. And of course, there's a shitload of people who will come in and try to sell you some pigskin with tattoos on there and claim. So, like, and there's also no price tag on it. One guy will give it to you, and the arm I bought for £100, and the other piece costed me £2,000. You know, like, and the one is only 150-year-old, the other one is 2,500 years old. So like, there is no price on it. It's just like, do you want it? Yes or no? Yeah, I want it. You know, like I think my duty is here now. Once I got this thing, it's a non-profit organization to establish this thing as good as possible, so I can just pull my hands off it. And yeah, we're getting there. There is a, well, you're here. I mean, this is already a, you know, like the media people. There's a lot of media attention, a lot of like newspapers and write-ups, and so like next year we're doing this enormous tattoo show of five days in the harbor, just to give us a boost, just to give us a nice pile of CIF, cash in the fist, which we can use to, which helps it establish, because right now we're always working at the edge. We're always just about being able to pay the electricity bill, the rent, and we need a bigger building. We got way more than we can show. So like that's what we're working on, and then I can like lay down.
Now, you recently returned from the U.S. where you were at a tattooing convention. What goes on at these things?
Oh, in the old days, you would end up in somebody's room and everybody would be doing drugs and beer. And now we're all sensible, so no, we just sit there, drink coffee, and talk shit. And that's it. You'll see your friends, which you know for many years, all at the same time. Instead of going to visit the guy over at his house, but now we're all there together. So like for a couple of days, and it's all, hey, how's it going? And so the first night is really a big exciting thing. The second night already gets a little boring. The third night, it's done, because there's still sometimes heavy drinking involved and late night, but it's fun, and people get tattooed a little bit. People show what they did in the year, show you new drawings, sometimes build a new machine. So it's actually what any convention is. Dentists all together, you know, they're all like this. But like basically that's what it is. They're looking at what you've been doing the last year and just have chats with people.
Now, speaking of instruments, throughout the world there must be different forms or different ways in which people get tattoos or give tattoos. Yeah. Could you describe a few that are popular?
Well, right now we have the electric machine. The electric machine is a little bit over 100 years old, and so like that's basically what they use in the Western world. The Samoans still use their old tool, which is a boar tusk, which they file down into like a comb of little points, which they put above the skin, and they hit it with a mallet, a chisel and a mallet, which is a pretty good way as long as people hold the skin tight. There is the needle and thread method, which was used by the Northern Cree and the Eskimo and Inuit, I should say, and yeah, actually you could tattoo with anything. With a broken bottle, only the result. Well, you know, I see people getting tattooed with a Black & Decker. They took the how you call the hacksaw, and welded needles on it, and they tattooed this poor son of a bitch with this thing, and like just like totally mutilated his upper arm. People will take anything to tattoo each other.
So let me ask you this. How many tattoos do you have?
85. I'm waiting for 86 and then it's over. I'm going 86 myself after that one. No, I mean, like, I still have lots of space. I have bigger ones, smaller ones, and they're basically like little collections. Sometimes it's an old timer. This guy could hardly see anymore. This is Danny Skews. This is the Bristol Tattoo Club out of the 50s. And he will make you remember, Hank. And so, like, you know, like, this thing is like way out of place, badly done, but a hell of a souvenir. That's sort of how it works. It gets to that point that it doesn't really bother you anymore if you have like a nice flower or a butterfly. These are all little memories. Got one of the kids here. an ex-wife, another ex-wife, a new wife, a trip to Russia. You know, this is sort of how New York City, my photography days, another ex-wife. So like there is it is a little bit, yeah, part of life is here. You know how to read it.
So what's in the future for you?
I don't know. I sort of tend to stop with all the ex-wives. I mean, anything else, the future is open. Is way open. I hope to get this thing really the way I want it. I'm working on a new book at this moment, on which is a Lexion, an A till Z on tattooing, which is basically on the old traditional type of tattooing with the different tribes, like the Apiones and like the old Scythians, and like, so basically it's like an A till Z, but it's in a readable way. I mean, like I like to write it so that people start at A, because I like to add a little humor to a little flavor to the whole deal, instead of like, you know, like the more scientific part. That way I get away with a bunch of mistakes as well.
Let me ask you one last question. What kind of people come in and get tattoos?
Oh, you used to be able to point at a certain group. Nowadays, it's very hard to say these people will, these people won't. That changes very quickly. I mean, like when a guy like Tupac really got popular and being tattooed, a shitload of black people all of a sudden got tattooed. It all depends what's happening. People need a role model somewhere. After we tattooed Anthony Kiedis, and who had a Northwest Coast Indian piece on his back, the Northwest Coast Indian tattoos became popular. So like stuff triggers off in different directions by different people.
Okay, well, Hank, thank you for that enlightening journey through tattoos.
All right. No
Thank
problem.
you again. Well, here we are. We're actually with someone getting a tattoo, ancient Morai design by an actual Morai tattooist. So maybe I could ask her name first.
Margreet.
And Mark, what do you have being put on your arm here?
I have my Ori tattoo, and for me it's just a beautiful form, the Maori tattoo. So when I get tattooed by a real Maori, it's even nicer. Yeah.
Is this your first tattoo?
No, it's 1, 2, 3, the fourth.
Could I ask you why you're getting a tattoo?
Yeah. Well, some people are buying art and putting art in their home, and I think this is a form of art, so I have it always with me on my body. Yeah.
Have you always been happy with them after you got them?
I'm sorry?
Have you always been happy with your tattoos after you received them, after they were put on?
Yes, very happy. Yeah, yeah. It's the first thing when you wake up and think, yes, it's still there. Yeah, I'm very happy with it. It's a sort of extra. Yeah.
Is it hurting right now while he's doing this?
No, not really. It's almost a nice kind of pain. You can feel it, but it's yeah. You have to concentrate in the feeling, and then it's bearable. Yeah, it's good. It's a good feeling. It's a bit addicted feeling.
What brought you to get your very first tattoo?
I was thinking about it for several years. So when there was a moment and I thought, now I do really want a tattoo. And I've seen several tattoo shops, but when I saw a documentary of Henk on television, and I read a book of him, and I thought it was a very different kind of tattoo artist. So I went to a shop and I had my first tattoo by Henk. Yeah.
So I noticed you were with a man earlier. What does he think of your tattoos?
Yes, he thinks it's nice, but I don't think it's. I don't think he likes to have tattoos on his skin. No, but he's an artist, so he likes drawings, and he's interested in the drawings of the tattoos. Yeah.
I have a daughter who has a lot of tattoos now, and some of them are strange. Hers are strange. What did your mother ever say anything about him?
Yeah. Well, they were a bit surprised, but I think they see it as a thing that it's from this time, so they're not really shocked. But yeah, I once had body paint. I was body painted by my brother, and they liked it even. So they're in that way they're very modern. Yeah.
Do you think you'll get more tattoos?
Definitely. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Well, we've worked our way right up to the tattooist. This is David Heine again in the Tattoo Museum, and now we're going to talk with the tattoo artist who has a long Morai name, so I'm going to ask him to introduce himself.
Kia ora, it's Te Rangitu Amoho Netana. Yeah, it is a long name. The short is Te Rangitu.
So, Te Rangitu. Tell me, how long have you been in the tattoo business?
Well, my mother would say when I started drawing on the walls, but I guess it would be like 16. I started 16. I'm 26 now, yeah. And I guess you want to know when I started, how I started. Well, I guess when I was younger, and I was brought up in a little country town in the north called Kaikohe. I think I was influenced and brought up by a very staunch kind of Māori background, and then I wasn't too good at school and all that kind of thing, but my father really influenced me a lot with the spiritual beliefs, and especially my grandfather as well. Their jobs were very traditional in our area. My grandfather was a what would you call him, a family tree man. He would recite our family tree going back generations to centuries, I guess. And my father was a rongoa. He kind of worked in spiritual medicine, and being a minister of our faith, being Ratana, it's a traditional Māori kind of faith, and then influenced because I guess being young and in those times, being brought up, I think it was the 80s, there was a lot of gang life, and there was a lot of kind of like that really appealed to young men at the time. You get drunk and get tattooed and things like that, and my father gave me a different way of getting tattooed. I wanted gang signatures on me and things like that, to be with the boys and join a kind of a group that I guess we felt disassociated from the English kind of culture that was the influence there, and really searching for our identity. And then I found I was lucky enough to be given the identity by my father and the ancestors that they taught about. And so my first tattoo was at 16 from my father, and it was based from my grandfather's tribe, and it spoke of who I was and my tie to the land, our beliefs, and really things that in time it worked with me and really helped me to understand who I am today, and what is my direction as a navigator, I guess, in my life. It was based on wood pigeon, which is a spiritual bird from my area, and my father explained it like, because I was a very wild kind of young boy kind of, and he explained it when a wood pigeon sits in the trees in summer and eats the berries, it ferments in the stomach, and sometimes you can see them in the trees and they get drunk, and sometimes they fall out of the tree, and before they hit the ground they fly straight back to their home, so they know where their home is. And also the bird always flies forward in life, it doesn't fly backwards. He turns his head to refer to the past for his future. And when he eats the berry, he shits the berry and makes a tree, or makes a seed, hits the ground and becomes a tree and becomes food for his children. And so my berries is knowledge, I guess, of our people. And my life was, now and then I do fall out of the tree, but I do know where my home is to go back and start again. And I do refer to the legends and the culture and the upper jaw knowledge in a way, my mind's eye that had been given to me through the ancestors for my future, and try to relay it in my work and to all people, really, not really, because to me I think Tāmoko represents a rongoa, is a medicine for the person. It has no color, it has no creed, it has no boundaries. It's always evolving, and it evolves with. I mean, for I think Māoris are the youngest of the Pacific, last to Mana Island, and we come from all the Pacific Island cultures in Pacific. We're a huge compilation of difference, and that's what I think Māori is, a celebration of difference. And I think I've met, it's helped me to understand where we should stand, or where I should stand in the modern day society. Yeah, so yeah, if you got more to ask me.
Well, I wanted to ask you, actually, the tradition of tattooing in your people has a spiritual context, or what context?
Definitely. I mean, everything that, I guess, in indigenous culture, the artwork wasn't only, it was practical as well as being, like, beautiful to look at. Spiritual, I guess, would be, I mean, there's many forms of spiritual you can think. So when you say spiritual, thousands of things shoot through my mind. So to explain about what specific type of spiritual, I guess, I mean, I learn when I do receive pain or the pain of Tāmoko, it's it teaches me about my body and the healing of my body afterwards. I mean, the difference of I see as European style kind of tattooing to Māori or traditional style tattooing, that they look at the ink, and where we look at we look at the skin, and it's the two types of the skin is the pattern, not the ink, and the European, they cover the skin and they make the ink the pattern. The ink for us, or for me, represents the ancestors, and I always work in black. I don't really work in colours, but the black is the beginning of all things. It's the essence of our ancestors, and when I place it into the skin, it's the ancestors complementing the person, the child, the skin. And so it's something to me that's already written. There's 3 parts that I'm working with. There's my ancestry and legends and the things that are knowledge and being kind of taught to me. There's also the person I work with that they have a door that needs to be open, and so I try to talk to them and help them to understand my culture. And in order to, my belief is to learn about any indigenous culture, is to learn about your own culture that once was. And we all lived by the land, we all lived by different languages, different names, but it was basically the same thing. I mean, it represents the elements, the different elements of your body, like water, Tangaro, god of the sea, 75% of your body, which is the strongest of our body. And then you have different female signs and male signs. Where we came from is always remembered from the woman, and so we have symbols to represent we come from the house of knowledge, the womb, that Tangaro was gave to the woman, the first woman, and then we are created in those waters. And then after that we have different things like the oxygen, water, fire, earth, all those things. I mean, every part of your body you can tie to the earth, and when we die we go back to the earth, and so it's a very natural. It's all organic kind of tattooing. It's very natural. It's been around for years, even longer than Māori, I would say. And it's evolved, and that's what I like all tattooing. Even European tattooing, I like it. It's just another off step or branch off the original way of tattooing. But I think what it misses is the spiritual content, the person. I mean, now it's a huge industry. You make money, and you can be a famous person. You can drive in limos or do whatever you want, But I think for me, I love teaching, and I love talking, and I learn from people, different types from different walks of life, different countries, and they teach me as well to the adapting my art to their way of life. And unfortunately, I can't go any deeper than a certain level, and I can start there. But a lot of them, I've met so many good friends that I end up living with them, I end up spending time with them, and I can see them change, and they see me change, and they help me along. So it's all about, I think it's about life, and
Well, getting back to the actual phenomena of tattooing, I notice you're using an electric machine here. What is a traditional Maori tattoo mechanism?
It's a uhi. It's kind of like similar to the Samoan way of tattooing. It's with the one on its sticks, but one is like a arched chisel, but it's shorter, because if you look at the Samoan ones, they're quite long. Ours is shorter. And they use lineal lines, and you can see it evolve to us, and then we use organic kind of shapes, and so it had to be shorter. So we tap it into the skin, stretching and using someone to stretch, and then we use the muscle structure, and the we don't really draw it on. It's using the muscle structure and natural lines of the body. I see the benefits in both a machine and a uhi. I do use chisel when I'm at home. I thought this was my first time out to Europe, so I didn't want to bring my chisels with me. I wanted to see what's going on, but also show that I can use a machine, to learn about the machine all I can. And if I guess they come out with a laser machine, I'll probably get on that too. It's just, it's a type of paintbrush you use when you paint. It's your preference, really. And but I use both. I see good things in both. One's more detail, the other one is consistent line. It's always gonna be a consistent line, and it's easier. I find it easier to work with a chisel, and even though I'm still learning with the chisel and the machine. Maybe I'll invent something else, I don't know, but it's just I do like using machine, and I do like doing all sorts of tattoos, but especially Māori, traditional Māori. Yeah.
Okay then, thank you very much for all that information, and look forward to our next tattoo.